Hey everybody, my name is Elizabeth, and my elements and mineral to report on of choice is sodium. Um, One of the things, the purpose of this video is just to augment or highlight a couple of points that I included in my report, my written report, but that I felt were important to kind of highlight. So the first thing is as it relates to hopefully debunking a myth or two about sodium. And it is very important. And unfortunately, in America, it gets a bad rap because we are known as a culture in terms of our diet where we just go overboard with sodium intake. We run to restaurants, we run to prepackaged foods, we run to fast foods, and all of those things are terribly guilty of having the highest sodium content out there in terms of available food. So there are better options, but sodium by and large is not necessarily a bad thing. That's the first point. Second point is also maybe to debunk a myth as far as our availability of sodium. So if you're going to use salt to season your food, there are some other options out there. One of those being sea salt, which is also sodium chloride. And that is not to say that sea salt is less salty or has less milligrams per serving of salt. It's by and large the same as table salt or something like that. However, in America, we like to refine things, and salt is no exception. So, on the shopping shelves that you see in the stores, you will see refined sodium chloride or salt, table salt. And that's important to know because, as you may know, refined means stripped away. So there are things that are typically found in those salt deposits in the earth where sodium is harvested from or can be harvested from. And there are things such as trace minerals, boron, iron, magnesium, and zinc that are in there, along with other things that are stripped out. And by as it relates to American way of processing things, we also typically add in other things. So when we strip something out, we usually add something back in. Table salt is no exception either. Table salt also has additives. Among them is an anti-caking agent. So not only are we stripping the good things out from your salt, which kind of has to be monitored anyway, but again, not necessarily a bad element or a bad mineral, but we're also putting chemicals in its place. So table salt, as it relates to the availability on your store shelf, may not be the best solution. If you've got to have sodium or salt on your food or something like that, at least know that there are other options as it relates to salt, and sea salt is one of those, where the naturally occurring minerals, trace minerals that are found in there, typically are not stripped out, and sea salt is not typically refined before it's put on the shelf. You'll see it in its rocky form, typically in those grinders where you have to almost grind it yourself. So that is an option for you, at least to have some nutritive value to the sodium that you are adding to your food if you feel like you need to do that. The second part would be to season your food with fresh herbs. They can be dried herbs, they can be fresh herbs, they can be tarragon, rosemary, thyme, cumin. Any of those are great ideas and supplements that can help really augment or enhance the flavor of your food without putting salt on there. And a lot of people don't realize that. Mrs. Dash, by the name brand, has kind of taken a corner on that market or started the idea in the market anyway. And really, all they've done is put a lot of herbs together in a convenient tube or a convenient shaker, and people are using that almost in place of salt because it helps enhance the flavor and it doesn't add any sodium to your diet. However, I said I did think sodium does get a bad rap because of the way we overuse it here in America. At our most basic level, cellular perfusion, cellular respiration, sodium is important to all of our body functions, and it's one of the main core electrolytes. It keeps pH balance, it keeps fluid balance, keeps our kidneys in good shape and functioning. And so sodium is at its core level from a physiological standpoint very important. But those were a couple of myths I kind of wanted to debunk, and a couple of areas that you can maybe research for yourself and know that there are other options out there than just grabbing a nameless brand of table salt from the shelf and filling your salt shaker. There are other possibilities. The other part just is a quick practical application, lesson in practical application as it relates to label reading and giving you some guidelines from the RDA or FDA as it relates to RDAs and limitations in sodium as far as recommendations in our diet. They do list 2.3 grams a day or 2,300 milligrams for an average adult for USDA RDI for sodium intake. Although in my research, I found evidence to support 1.5 grams a day or 1,500 milligrams. Even the AHA, the American Heart Association, recommends that level for hypertensive individuals, but there is a lot of newer research out there that comes from the CDC even that continues to support those lower amounts of sodium for all adult ages. So hopefully we'll be seeing some more research as it relates to lower sodium levels. And I think I would probably even challenge a part of that because it has to do with your sources of sodium as well. So I think 1,500 milligrams or somewhere between 1,500 and 2,300. You'll probably see a new revised standard coming soon, either from the USDA or CDC. Practical application, just to wrap up the video. Low sodium by the FDA is considered 5% or less. So when you're reading your labels, as it relates to your food labels on the back of your canned goods, by the way, FYI, canned goods, almost in the same category as prepackaged foods and all the rest, restaurant foods, fast foods, in terms of highest sodium content levels. So look for the banners on the front that say low sodium, or turn it around, takes a half a second, and look at your label. Sodium is required by the FDA to be listed on the back of your label. This one says 65 milligrams or 3% of my daily value. So this would actually be considered a low sodium food.